Sometimes, when you look into someone's eyes, you feel deep down that they are lying to you or that something is wrong. They are telling you something, but either it is incomplete or excessive. The words don't sound real, as they should. They smile at you while talking, trying to appear sincere, but the tone of their voice makes you uncomfortable. A slight chill inside you whispers, "Are they telling me the truth, or are they lying?" In today's video, we'll explore this question together. Don't worry, I'm not going to drag you into guilt trips or paranoia here, but there's one thing we all know and accept. Lies are a part of all our lives. In fact, for some of us, it's a regular and constant part of our lives. From our partners, friends, and coworkers to strangers on social media. We use some lies in our lives as simple escapes. These are small lies that don't bother our conscience. Others, however, can be more harmful and dangerous than you might think. Neither you nor I can often tell the difference, because there are people who do this professionally. But I want you to know that at the PsychoGrowth Workshop, you can begin to distinguish between reality and fiction by understanding human psychology. Assuming you will be honest with me and yourself, I want to ask you a question. Have you asked yourself the question, why does a person lie, many times? Because the answer to this question is the first step in understanding the psychology of the person in front of you. Some people lie to hide their bad intentions, others to establish superiority. Most of the time, however, lying turns into a defense mechanism. This is a situation caused by their fear, or it may be because they are consumed by guilt. Sometimes it is to make themselves look better than they are in those giant mirrors. In psychology, this behavior is called self-preservation motivation, and this motivation is reflected in body language, eye contact, movements, and even tone of voice. Unfortunately, however, you and many others like you have never learned to read these signals. I remember a study. The average person is exposed to between 30 and 220 lies in a single day. Does that surprise you? It shook me up when I first heard it, because I assumed everyone was like me. Then I stepped back and started thinking to myself, maybe I was actually noticing the lies all along, but my mind was categorizing them as normal and moving on. That's why it's so important to recognize psychological cues. Once you learn them, you'll say to yourself, I can't believe it. Liars exhibit certain behaviors involuntarily. If the person they're talking to realizes they're lying, it's pretty humiliating for the liar, especially if the liar isn't aware of it. For example, someone who gives overly detailed answers to questions is very likely to be lying. There's a reason for the saying, those who talk a lot lie a lot. They pretend to make eye contact, but in reality, they do this to avoid contact and buy time to lie. Their hands, arms, and feet move excessively. There is a long sound between words. And most importantly, there are inconsistencies in the story they tell. But wait, rarely, all of these may not always be signs of lying in everyone. This is where empathy comes into play. Feelings and emotions come into play. Without judging the person, but by observing carefully, you can understand whether it is true or a lie. So what was the biggest lie you ever caught? Share it with me in the comments. Understanding lies is not just about figuring out other people. It's also about understanding ourselves. When do we say I'm fine to someone when we're actually not? When do we say no problem even when we're broken? So it's not just about other people lying to us. It's also about us hiding our own feelings sometimes. And perhaps the deepest lies are the ones that pass by without a sound. These deep lies that we overlook eventually turn into an untruth within us. And what follows is a complete disaster. At this point, I would like to invite you to consider the following. When you try to truly understand someone, do you focus more on what they don't say than what they do say? What people want to say is not in what they say, but in what they cannot say. and sometimes they lie because of what they cannot say. Human psychology sometimes conveys the clearest messages through silence, and noticing what is hidden in this silence can change your life. So what you catch may not actually be a lie, but a truth. You never know what emotional state the lie you catch will put you in. Soon, I will show you how to understand lies more clearly based on some real-life examples. But first, ask yourself this question honestly. Do you prefer to trust someone or to control them? Because sometimes, when we constantly question someone, we are actually seeking answers to our own insecurities. That's why there's a very fine line between detecting lies and paranoia, and we need to learn to walk that line. So how can we do that? The answer lies in a few basic psychological observations. For example, when a person lies, stress increases in their brain. This stress manifests itself in the body as microsecond reactions. We call these microexpressions. That is, real emotions that last for a fraction of a second on a person's face. If someone is smiling at you, but the corners of their eyes aren't crinkling, that smile is probably not genuine. Or if someone is trying to convince you and uses phrases like, "I'm sure," "I'm telling the truth," or "I swear," too often, they may be using those words to suppress something. And sometimes, the person who is lying tries to make you feel too comfortable. Someone who is telling the truth usually doesn't need to explain themselves, because truth doesn't need to be defended. Another example, former FBI behavioral analysts often use a method when analyzing suspects' statements. They ask them to retell the same story at different times, because if a person is telling the truth about something they experienced, the details remain consistent. But if they're making it up, those details change over time, and that change becomes a clue to the lie. You can use this in your daily life as well. Is a friend telling you something that doesn't sit right with you? Wait for them to retell the story over time. Are they making an effort to tell you, or are they forced to explain? Are they acting naturally toward you, or are they acting deliberately? Remember this: lies are not only a mirror to understand the person in front of us, it is also a mirror for understanding ourselves. The hurt you feel when someone else lies to you may be because you don't trust your inner voice enough, because your inner voice often whispers the truth, but you suppress it, ignore it. Perhaps because you don't want to be alone, or perhaps because you're not ready to hear the truth. But remember, no matter how difficult and painful the truth may be, it is temporary. It does not deceive you like a lie. But now you are ready. Now you know what a lie looks like, not just in words. You have learned to pay attention to glances, facial expressions, and silences. Human psychology is like a map, and when you learn to read this map, you begin to look not to judge people, but to understand them. And this understanding empowers you. It gives you the courage to be more honest, not just with others, but with yourself as well. For example, have you felt uneasy while talking to someone recently? Did something about what was said to you not sit right? Think about it again now and analyze it. Perhaps the person you were talking to said something missing or excessive somewhere. You, who know what a lie looks like, can easily understand this now. Tell me about it in the comments section, and I'll tell you whether it's a lie or the truth. I'm trying to create an awareness workshop here for all of us. I want people to discover their own potential and become aware of what they can do. And if this content has been helpful to you, don't forget to subscribe, like it, and share it with a friend who is interested in psychology. Remember, everything starts in the mind, and you've already begun to train your mind.